everybody, Tim the Piano Man here. It is 8:43 a.m. when I'm making this video, and I'm going to work, y'all. I'm going to work, but I'm working for myself. I have my own business where I play piano at retirement communities, and I do this full-time. It allows me to use my art to make money, and it's an underserved community, and I get to have a lot of free time to do whatever I want. I can hang out with my girlfriend, I can hang out with friends, I can practice piano, write music, exercise, work on my business. And recently I've been working a lot on my business, like growing it, not just maintaining it, but also growing it. Now, if you want to play piano at retirement communities, you don't have to wake up at 8 a.m., at 7 a.m. If you keep different hours, that's fine. You know, even if you played in bands till 2 in the morning like I used to, 3 in the morning sometimes before the different laws of Memphis took place, even if you wake up at noon, you sleep till noon and you wake up at noon, you can just skip the 10 a.m. shows and you can play in the afternoon. You can play at 2 p.m., 3:30 p.m., and 5 p.m. and still make it to your bar gig at 8 p.m. You can chill 6 to 8, 6 to 7, or if your bar gig starts at 9. You know, it doesn't have to be full time. These gigs can be a part-time endeavor that supplements your normal musician's income. But you do have to do a little, I would call it a little spy work. You have to, I call it spy work because it's fun to talk about it like that. And really it's my entire my entire energy goes to this, so it doesn't feel like spy work to me. It's just what it is. But you have to understand there are certain nuances of interacting with people at retirement communities, both staff and residents and families, that are a little bit different from a bar gig. So here's some ways that a bar gig is different from retirement communities. What you need to know to play at retirement communities, what not to do that's appropriate at bars, and vice versa. If you're a musician playing at retirement communities, you have to understand that interacting with seniors is different than interacting with folks at a bar. Okay, if you're at a bar and you're playing in a band, then volume is your weapon. Volume is your tool, and you use the amplifiers to amplify your instrument. Maybe you play a plug-in keyboard. Maybe you sing and your voice is pounding through speakers. If you're at a retirement community, volume is incredibly important. And what's important here is turning it down. Turning it way down. Especially if you're playing at dinner. Oh my goodness, if you're playing at dinner, you have to be light as a feather. You have to be light as a feather. So much so that the people in the back can barely hear you. Now I know that's controversial, right? Because you want to be able to reach everybody? No. Because, and especially if you're playing an acoustic piano, like I do, the people and the tables right next to you are going to complain if you're too loud, if your playing is too loud. You know what I do? I don't even open up the piano. If the piano is open, I close it. I close the lid. And my left foot is on the damper pedal the entire time. The reason I do this is because if I'm too loud and if one or two tables complains, that's all the feedback that the activities director hears. Well, it's not all the feedback, but it's the feedback that speaks the loudest. If you have somebody that's upset, that's a problem for the activities director. Because if you upset somebody, they're going to cause a stink, and they're going to use their clout, whatever clout they have in the community, to make sure that you don't come back. These are, I suppose, political nuances of playing at retirement communities. You have to make friends with the people at the tables right next to you. If they clap, say thank you, solicit requests, engage them in respectful conversations without being pushy. Let them set the pace of the conversation. So you can ask them questions to engage them, but if they don't seem like they want to talk, don't push it. Why? Because this is their home. the seniors, they prefer seniors to elderly. Seniors are human beings that have been around for decades more than I have, and probably decades more than you. Sometimes they just don't want to deal with the conversation. You know, they've been pitched many times. They've been solicited by businesses and by scam artists. Or, you know, and maybe they're not paranoid. Maybe they're genuinely wonderful people, but they just want to have a conversation with their friend next to them. That does not involve you, and don't take it personally. Okay, so volume is the first thing that you got to watch out for. Compared to a bar gig where volume is your weapon, well, at retirement communities it's a weapon too, but it cuts so much deeper. So you have to be very, very careful, especially during dinner gigs. You can pound on the keys a little bit harder if you're playing a happy hour, if you need to cut through the babble of excited, possibly intoxicated seniors at a happy hour. And in those situations, the vibe is closer to a bar gig, but it's nowhere near. It's nowhere near it. If you're playing an independent living for folks that have just retired and they're in their cruise ship phase of retirement, that's what I like to call it, cruise ship phase of retirement. I've actually never. It's the first time I've used that term, but I really like that. I'm going to use that now. Cruise ship phase. If they're in their cruise ship phase, then you can get a little crazier, because that's what they need a lot of the time. But temper it. Do not get bar level crazy. The second thing that you need to know that I've learned, that I'm going to share with you, about the difference between bar gigs and playing at retirement communities is how you get paid. Okay, how you get paid at a retirement community is different from how you get paid at a bar. One of the things that I hated about playing at bars is that at the end of the night, 3 a.m. in my case, I would be exhausted. I'd probably have to get up for school the next day, and I was planning on getting 4 or 5 hours of sleep, because yes, at that time I was burning the candle at both ends, because I suppose my body could handle it, because I was in my early 20s. I don't do that anymore, by the way. I don't burn the candle at both ends. Sleep is important. So anyways, waiting for the club owner to count the money, to count the tips, to count the door that you brought in, sometimes, in fact oftentimes, not trusting that it would be an accurate count, because I was a kid, or I was a young adult, and I didn't have any kind of agency as far as negotiating with the bar owner, and I was not the one that handled the business anyways. We would get $30 a night sometimes. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it was crazy. Anyways, getting paid is much different, and I like getting paid at retirement communities a lot better. One of the interesting things, though, about getting paid at a retirement community is that if you're just starting out playing gigs at a retirement community, you need to save up. Get a financial cushion. Save up as much money as you can in the first year, really, so that you have several months worth of expenses. The reason why I suggest this is, number one, it's just good financial advice to have that kind of safety net, so that if you need to pay for an unexpected expense, you can do that. Living paycheck to paycheck is hard, and it's risky. First thing that I did was save up a month's worth of expenses. Actually, it was about 2 months, and I felt really good about that. And I started saving more and more until I got to 6 and 12 months. Again, the reason that that's important is because most retirement communities pay on a cycle. And this is a old school accounting cycle where checks are cut every month, not every 2 weeks. And oftentimes, you'll not get paid the day of. Now, this can be frustrating for musicians that need to get paid that day. Why? Well, it is what it is. You know, as musicians, we feel like we should get paid that day for the work that we do. I mean, James Brown wouldn't go on stage until he got paid. Like, he'd get paid first. Now, I'm not saying that does not happen, because there are some communities that are on top of things and want their musicians to feel respected in that way. And some places, you'll show up and they'll hand you a check and then you'll sit down and play. And that's great. that's about 10-15% of these shows have that check waiting for you. So you could specialize in the communities that have the check paid, if that's super important to you. Or you could save up and just hop on to the rhythm of that accounting cycle. And it's an old school accounting cycle. And it can be kind of frustrating sometimes, because sometimes there's discrepancies and miscommunications and you have to follow up. But that's part of the business. It's just part of it. I don't hate it. It's annoying to have to follow up sometimes. But the checks are bigger for me than playing at a bar. And the third reason why playing at retirement communities is different than playing at a bar is the environment, the people, the staff. Like, everybody's so different, because at a bar, if you're amongst your peers, then, and there's a lot of alcohol, the vibe is different. People are there to party, people are there to get wild. And for seniors in the cruise ship phase of their retirement, partying, getting wild, well, it's not at the same level as folks in their 20s or 30s or 40s. It's not at the same level at all. So people are more, how shall I say this, reserved, I guess you could say, refined, dignified, some of them, most of them, at retirement communities. And that's nice for somebody like me that grew up in a bar environment. That was my world. That was my social network. And I was around a lot of drinkers, a lot of partiers, a lot of drug users. And it's, so if you play a lot at retirement communities, your social group is different. You socialize with seniors. I was talking with a friend of mine, an activities director, who's my age, and we were sharing how interesting it is that we both tend to socialize or spend a lot of our social time at work, yes, but it's social. We socialize with seniors. And it's really interesting because our tastes are such in music and movies that we appreciate the movies and the music from generations past. Now, I like that. I think it's a great thing to edify one's character through, and to understand, it's a great thing to understand history and where we came from. We're also experiencing a generational shift, and that generational shift is from the silent generation to the boomer generation, and the taste of music is changing slowly, but it's changing, and that's okay. Anyways, I hope that you've enjoyed this video where I talked about the different ways that senior homes and bar gigs tend to manifest. Let me know what your questions are, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.